concern.
The meeting of the Public Safety Committee is now called to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Bosley, Alderman French, Alderman Vaccaro,
Present.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderman Carter, Alderman Kotar.
Here.
Alderwoman Spencer. Here. Alderwoman Green, Chairman Kennedy,
Here.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman French, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Green, 5 present, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please excuse Alderwoman Green and Bosley.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Alderman Bosley's in the building. I think they're going to bring him up.
Okay, then.
We have a quorum.
We have 2 board bills before us. We will take up board bill number 200 first. It's sponsored by Alderwoman Davis. Do you have your bill in front of you?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kennedy and members of the committee. Board Bill number 200, I'm introducing the ordinance number 69589 as a new ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any packaged or drink liquor license for any non-currently occupied premises in the boundaries of the 19th Ward.
If I may hold you just for
Go
a
right
moment.
ahead.
Let's take a motion so the Alderman can go back over to the other meeting, just to put the bill before us.
Okay, then I'll make a motion, we put Board Bill 200 in front of us.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we place Board Bill 200 in front of us. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bosley, Alderman French, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderman Carter, Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green, Chairman Kennedy.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman French, Alderman Carter, 5 yes votes.
Thank you. By your vote, you've passed the motion. You may continue. Thank
I
you.
shall continue, thank you. This request for a new ordinance is for a period of 3 years, and we're allowing this moratorium period for the 3 years based on concern from the community as a whole. One of the things that we have been able to do is to mitigate the problem of having too many liquor stores. Actually, we don't have any within our boundaries currently. We don't want any. We also want to make sure that the issuance of liquor inside established, what we call lounge or bars or whatever, does not extend itself to selling packaged liquor. We want to make sure that any operating place that has a liquor license is selling liquor that is, first of all, accompanied by selling food, cooked food, and that is already on the books for the 19th Ward. So this is just another supplement for the protection of this area. The residents feel very strong about it. I feel very strong about it, and I think it also eliminates a lot of the problems that you have with crime and loitering and all those other things.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Vaccaro? Alderman Cone?
No questions.
Alderman Kotar?
No questions.
No questions. With that, do you have any closing statements?
I just simply ask for your favorable approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Then with that, we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we pass Board Bill 200 out with a do pass recommendation.
Been moved and seconded that
Previous roll.
Pass out Board Bill 200 with a do pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Any opposition to previous roll? Not by your vote, we have sustained the motion to pass out Board Bill 200 with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take up Board Bill 205, sponsored by Alderman Kotar. I understand we do have a committee
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We do have a committee substitute on Board Bill 205, and I would move to put the committee substitute for Board Bill 205 before us.
And I'll second that.
been moved and seconded. Request for
Previous roll.
Been moved and seconded that we place Board Bill, committee substitute for Board Bill 205 before us. There's been a request for previous roll. Any opposition to previous roll? Seeing none, by your vote, your motion's been sustained.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably should have done this before I made my motion, but the committee substitute makes a couple of changes, nothing major, primarily formatting and cleaning some things up that were, we saw some inconsistencies with numbering and things that we wanted to fix. It also adds, and you have a redlined version, I believe, but the committee substitute adds a definition for communication infrastructure on page 2, line 14, and then just be consistent so you know what we're doing. It also adds on page 9, line 9, a subsection E that I'll talk about in a second. So Board Bill 205 is an energy benchmarking ordinance, which would require building owners of buildings over 50,000 square feet in the city of St. Louis, including municipally owned buildings, to basically track and report to the city, to the building division specifically, their energy usage on an annual basis through what's called the Energy Star portal. Energy Star is a database that basically allows you to track information about buildings and basically plug them in and get a score, a 1 to 100 score of your energy usage. This board bill came to light as part of the city energy project, for which the city of St. Louis is a participating member. We were selected in the second round of cities to be in the city energy project just this past fall, and one of the requirements is to pass an energy benchmarking ordinance. 20 cities have already passed these ordinances, including Kansas City, Chicago, many East Coast cities, and we have a number of folks here today to speak in support of the bill. Ashok Gupta from the Natural Resource Defense Council, Emily Andrews from the Green Building Council, who can explain more about the city energy project and sort of the national effort to pass these ordinances. The goal here is twofold. One, it's to get building owners to be thinking more seriously about their energy usage. Now, realistically, in the commercial building world, this is kind of standard practice. If you own a big building downtown, for example, you're already tracking this information. You know, you want to know where you have your efficiencies and not. The difference here is now you're going to have to turn that data over to the city. And the goal is that the city is going to annually produce a report, not calling out specific buildings, but an annual report about energy usage that the building commissioner's office will compile, basically to track where we are as a city and how we're doing on our energy consumption. I mean, we're fortunate here in the city of St. Louis that we have abundant water, we have abundant natural gas, we have plenty of electricity and coal power and everything else, and I think we often sometimes take these things for granted and we don't think as much about our usage as maybe we could. And the big buildings, the 50,000 square foot and above buildings, really are responsible for the vast majority of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's why this ordinance seeks to require only those largest buildings in the city to report these energy statistics, because frankly they're the largest consumers of energy. Just to put it in perspective, there's 100,000+ buildings in the city of St. Louis. Approximately 900 will be impacted by this ordinance. 200 of those are in the 7th Ward. The rest are primarily in the 17th Ward, some in the 5th Ward, and some in the 6th. That makes up the bulk of the buildings we're talking about. Industrial buildings are exempted out. So, we've met with, there's some groups that had some concerns. So we've met myself, Emily Andrews, Frank Oswald, the building commissioner, have met with, the various associations that manage large buildings, and they are familiar with these ordinances. They've seen them implemented in other cities. We've addressed some of their concerns. We also addressed the concern that AT&T had involving some of their very sensitive telecommunications infrastructures and some homeland security issues as it relates to the energy usage at those facilities. That's what we've addressed in the committee substitute, carving out a handful of buildings that are important to our communications infrastructure, both in the city and nationally. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to either, I guess, Emily or Ashok, if you both want to come up to give a few remarks.
Should we go for the Ameren?
Oh, sorry, Ameren's here in support, and the utilities are all on board with this, so why don't we go to Ameren and have them come up and say a few words in support, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
I would note that Ameren and Laclede are both in support of this ordinance and able to provide the data to the building owners.
Would you please identify yourself and career?
Yes, so I'm Rich Wright, and I'm the manager of the Ameren Missouri's Biz Saver program, which is the energy efficiency incentive program. And we really appreciate you allowing us here to give our support of this bill. And so we're pleased to have this opportunity to support the building energy awareness bill, and that should be easy to come off my tongue here, because that's the perfect name for this program. Having awareness of what your energy is just entirely important. And When businesses know how they are utilizing their energy, it unlocks opportunities for everyone. And some of these opportunities include long-term reduction in energy and associated utilities bills. So as companies recognize these opportunities, they move ahead with lowering their bill opportunities. Reducing upfront costs associated with new energy efficiency equipment when utilizing Ameren Missouri's Biz Savers Energy Efficiency Program. So once the customers recognize these opportunities, we can actually give them incentives to lower those upfront costs associated with new, more efficient equipment being put in place. Benefits to the environment by reducing the fossil fuel utilized by electric energy centers, which reduces our emissions. It reduces carbon, and it also reduces sulfur dioxide as it associates with that. Delays the need to build new energy generation centers. So this is basically billions of dollars that we push off in the future every time that a customer saves and reduces their energy usage. So the Building Energy Awareness Bill is an easy way for businesses to determine how effective, as far as the ratings, they are in utilizing their energy, which will open their eyes to energy and cost savings opportunities. Ameren Missouri is in support of the bill, the Building Energy Awareness Bill, and supplying our customers with the needed energy data to support this database. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd be willing to entertain us, we have two more quick speakers.
That's fine.
All right, Ashok Gupta and Emily Andrews, if you guys want to come up, you can come up at the same time.
I just have a little handout for everybody if you want, since there's just a few left.
You guys take the hot seats, I'll go over here.
We'll be efficient.
There
It's
you go.
about efficiency today, right?
That's right.
Do you want to go first? All right, well, my name's Emily Andrews. I'm the Executive Director of the U.S. Green Building Council, Missouri Gateway Chapter. And I'm here representing our Board of Directors to express our strong support for the Building Energy Awareness Ordinance. We support this ordinance because it will reduce energy and water use, create local jobs, drive economic development, and keep St. Louis a world-class and competitive city. We've been located in the city of St. Louis, our office, for the 15 years that we've been around, providing education to building professionals and building owners and the broader community about smart green building practices. The energy efficiency that this ordinance will encourage is really the foundation of a green building, and we're thrilled to see the city's taking this step forward. I just have a few points to share. First of all, the handouts that I provided do give a breakdown of buildings by ward. And then the cover sheet on the back of that shows a list of supporters of this ordinance that we've been collecting. And you can see that it's a pretty broad group, including owners and building professionals and different organizations. So we're proud to have a strong group of people on board supporting this effort. Just as a little background, buildings in cities across the country are actually responsible for the majority of greenhouse gas emissions. In the city of St. Louis, the energy used in buildings is responsible for 80% of our greenhouse gas emissions. That's a significant number. And that's based on the 2015 greenhouse gas inventory that the Sustainability Office just completed in the Mayor's office. So knowing that buildings represent this much energy use provides a real opportunity to protect our environment for future generations while also saving money on energy and water costs. Reducing energy and water use in buildings also provides the opportunity to protect public health by reducing air pollution, which is a really important issue in the city of St. Louis. So just a very brief story about energy benchmarking and how it works and why it's important. I think we've all heard the phrase, you can't manage what you don't measure. That's why we wear Fitbits, right? Tracking our physical energy, and try to do better. And that's what this is about, tracking energy and water use so we can manage it better. Most savings will come through operational changes, just simply paying attention and being aware. And one of our members that considers themselves to be a very green company recently, in the last couple of years, through our voluntary benchmarking program, benchmarked their building, which was relatively new, less than 10 years old. They thought it was going to be super energy efficient, then they benchmarked it, and they found out that they were actually performing much lower than the national average for similar buildings. So really just paying attention. They were then able to use this data to make some simple no-cost operational changes, and this increased their efficiency dramatically. They've seen nearly 40% in energy savings from their baseline. So this is the kind of scenario where measuring or benchmarking energy use led to better management, leads to energy and cost savings and environmental protection. It's really kind of hits all the things that you want it to be hitting. So on behalf of USGBC and on behalf of our buildings, I encourage the Public Safety Committee to support this ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ashok Gupta, G-U-P-T-A, with NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council. I'm here also to speak on behalf of Board Bill 205. We think it's a very, very important step in terms of getting information in the marketplace. Information is what's needed for people to make decisions, whether you're an owner, whether you're a utility, whether you are a provider of efficiency measures and financing. Basically, without information, markets don't work. We have labels for cars, we have labels for appliances, we have labels for food. Information is really key to make good decisions as consumers, and having building information about what's going on in terms of energy and water is key to that. This is a national effort. The City Energy Project, as Alderman Coder mentioned, which St. Louis is now part of, is trying to do this in over 20 cities. So recently, so Kansas City, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Chicago, Orlando, lots of cities have passed this ordinance. There are a whole host of new cities like Miami and Pittsburgh and others who are going to be doing this soon. And St. Louis will be right in track in terms of being in one of the leading cities to do this. And so, why we focus on large buildings and existing buildings? Existing buildings have been around a long time and they'll continue to be around for a long time. New buildings, you hope, are going to be doing really smart things as they are built. But existing buildings is where we need to focus. And large buildings is where most of the square footage and most of the energy is. So if you look at even big cities like New York City, and it's also true for Kansas City, in New York City there's 1 million buildings. Buildings over 50,000 square feet are 20,000, 2%. And they represent about half the square footage and half the energy use. In Kansas City, it was about 1,500 buildings. Here, it's about 1,000 buildings. It makes the problem manageable when you do the largest buildings and say, okay, 1 to 2% of the buildings, 50% of the square footage. Let's tackle this. This includes government buildings, municipal buildings, private buildings, universities, hospitals, large buildings. Let's focus on those, work with the utilities, and let's address the issue of energy use in these buildings. The other thing in terms of what happens when you do this measurement is there's a huge variation from buildings that perform well and buildings that perform poorly. And it's not like the poor performing buildings are just using 10 to 20% more. What the data will show is the poor performing buildings are using 3 to 4 to 5 times as much per square foot. Times as much. So this is a huge. And so what we want to do is bring the poorer performing buildings to average. So you can always keep trying to get the better to do best. But the biggest benefits come from an economic, environmental perspective is if you bring the poor performing to average. And so getting this information, knowing how to target, getting the owners to work, and this idea here is to identify and work with the owners. It's really not intended to do anything else, but information is key for the owners, their tenants, and efficiency providers and lenders. So this is just kind of a good thing to do, and we think leadership's going to come from cities at this point if we want to make progress. And I think the effort with the City Energy Project and St. Louis participation in it is, let's get the cities all working on it. That's where the large buildings are. That's where the energy usage is the highest. And we're lucky to have both Laclede Spire and Ameren supportive of benchmarking and getting the information, working with owners, getting that data, and then we can move forward. So we're very excited. We appreciate your interest and strongly support Board Bill 205.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee on
I have questions. I'm not sure exactly who they would be directed towards, whether it's, the sponsor or the agencies that are here to testify in favor of the bill. But, I noticed that there's 11 buildings on the 25th Ward side of things. I have a general idea. So do those include, because I know that's part of your packet, but I'm assuming that you got the information from our building division. Do those include my manufacturing buildings, or are those 11 buildings the ones that are specifically going to be impacted by?
It's from the assessor's office, actually, the data, so.
Well, I guess my question though being, so I have 11 buildings that would qualify for this law and therefore would be impacted by it, or does it include my manufacturing buildings along
Probably include your
Gustine?
manufacturing
Yeah.
building.
So,
right
because
now.
I have, several very large facilities along, Gustine
Sure.
Avenue that
Yeah.
are exclusively manufacturing, and so, and/or vacant for the most part right now.
Yeah, and vacant, non-occupied buildings
Would
would
not
not
be
be
covered.
covered. Right, they're not.
But that's why I'm asking, is that 11, is that
It does, yeah.
buildings that are
This is
going to be
data-
impacted?
This data comes straight from the
So it's
assessor's
just
office.
raw data.
And then
Like,
we
I
just
have-
Just on-
sorted it
I just have
by
11
square
buildings that are larger
footage.
than 50,000.
Correct, yeah, I can get you the detailed spreadsheet of the uses of those buildings to see
Yeah.
which ones would actually qualify. And, part of this is the building division, as part of participating in the city energy project, will receive grant funding for a staff person to train building inspectors on this and also work with covered property owners on the reporting aspects of this. Your large sort of associations that deal with commercial properties in downtown and central West End kind of already know how to do this, but your individual building owners who might say, whoa, I have no idea how to find this information or fulfill these requirements, will have someone available to work with
So I
those
suppose
building
that's
owners.
where my next question is leading, because I have, quite a few very large buildings that are in my ward, but they're almost all owned by individuals or investment firms, sometimes in St. Louis, sometimes not. But, it's not a Sansone group that's managing it.
Right.
It's not a JG Gruy that's managing it. They're, firms that oftentimes are struggling to find adaptive reuses for these buildings. And, when we launched, the kind of green initiative for the city, a number of years ago, kind of the tagline there was historically sustainable. Most of the buildings that, we're talking about in my neck of the woods are, 60 years to 120 years old. And so, a perfect example would probably be the old National Candy Building that's at Gravois and Merrimack. It's a 400,000 square foot, 7-story, old manufacturing building, but now U-Haul owns it.
Mhm.
So U-Haul, is putting in all new HVAC, all new sprinkler systems, but instead of replacing the windows, they're reglazing the old windows. And so they're doing things to historic standards to kind of make sure that things are kind of to the liking of the neighborhood, if you will. But reglazing a single pane window, maybe is not the most energy efficient window that you would have. So the HVAC that they're putting in there to help cool the building is going to be probably an efficient model, I would imagine. But how the building is containing that energy might not be necessarily the most efficient use, if that makes sense. I mean,
Right.
it's like I have in my own home, which is clearly under 50,000 square feet, but in my own home, I have, the original coal burning furnace. I have radiant heat in my home, and it's the original coal burning furnace that's been upgraded to gas, and you're welcome, Spire, because I pay quite a bit of money every winter to you all. So, but it's been, a working model. I'm using less waste by not throwing it out and, scrapping all of that. So I'm just wondering, two things. How does this impact the historical, buildings that are out there that, aren't necessarily designed to be, green certified in the way that things are certified today? And then two, for the individual, owners that are looking to redevelop property and have adaptive reuses that aren't familiar with these certification requirements, maybe they are, but how does that factor into additional costs for, potential rehabilitation of those buildings?
So a couple of quick things, just So the bill doesn't require anybody to do anything in terms of making improvements, right? So
Right,
this is
no,
that
but it's a
information. Yeah,
$200 per day
right.
fine up to $1,000
Right,
a year
but the cost
fine
of
for
actually
not reporting.
benchmarking and
Yeah.
doing the benchmarking is pretty de minimis. In
Mhm.
other cities, we've basically been able to also offer help and
I guess
assistance
my
for.
question, so with the reporting, is it just, Laclede and, Spire and Ameren,
And water.
and water, just handing over the utility bills every
Well, it's
month?
essentially,
I
it's an
mean,
online
like-
portal, so you go into Energy Star, you set up an account, and some of the, for a building owner that's not already participating in Energy Star, it might take you a couple hours to set up the account. You gotta gather some information about your building, you need to have your usage for the year, which the utilities, and including the water department, are all able to provide and will be providing, these building owners. And you pump it in to the database, and that's essentially it, and you're done,
Okay,
yeah.
so.
And there will, just to back up on that, there will be, part of the grant, part of the city energy project is to provide support to building owners.
That was going to be
It's
my next
not
question.
expected
Okay.
that, if people are struggling with this, and they will, there will be building owners that struggle with this. Congregations, schools, other nonprofits, will not have people on staff to be able to do that, but there will be support to
Right.
train, to kind of handhold. We've been providing that support through what we call benchmarking jams on a regular basis for the last couple of years, and have seen a lot of success with that. Ameren and Laclede have both been really supportive in those efforts, and I think we'll continue to be able
Yeah.
to provide that technical service.
And I would just add that in the first year of this ordinance, the only buildings required to report are the city-owned buildings. So we're gonna work out the kinks and see, are there things that need to be changed based on how the city's buildings, when we enter all that information, how hard is it to find and put into the system? So we're participating as well, and we're actually gonna lead the effort and benchmark all of the city-owned buildings first before we ask, private building owners to do
So
this.
the support that's going to be provided to these property owners, is that going to be through the city? Like, is it a staff position in the building division then that will?
Be an employee of the division.
Okay, that's grant funded kind of a thing, okay. All right,
And then
great.
we will continue to provide that support as well as part of our general mission, as will, I think, some of the other organizations that work with building owners. So I think there'll be a lot of support there. And then just to address the historical building issue, in a lot of other cities where this benchmarking ordinance has been introduced and actually implemented, there are a few cities where it's been going on for several more years. They actually found that some of their historic buildings scored higher in Energy Star, had better performance in Energy Star than newer buildings.
Yeah.
So this building, actually, if I'm not mistaken, actually scores pretty high in Energy Star. So it may seem counterintuitive, but these older buildings were really built with a lot of,
They were engineered. and
Engineered
designed
in a way.
for-
And you're
Yeah.
comparing yourself to like buildings.
Like buildings,
That's what's
correct.
important to
Yeah.
remember.
I think that's all my questions.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Did you have another?
No other speakers, I don't think. Anyone else want to speak? Let's leave it at that.
Did our building commission have anything to?
No, I'm-
You're just here for information. and
He's here for
guidance.
support and information.
I move that we pass Board Bill 205 committee substitute out with a
Second.
pass recommendation.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass committee substitute to Board Bill 205 out with a due pass recommendation. Any discussion on the motion? If not, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bosley, Alderman French. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Carter.
Aye.
Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Green. Chairman Kennedy.
Here, aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Green, 6 yes votes.
By your vote, we sustain the motion to pass our committee substitute for Board Bill 205 with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That completes our agenda for today. We will have a committee meeting next Tuesday. We'll get what board bills will be on the agenda.
Do we know what time next Tuesday?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Look at that.
Thank you, everyone, for coming down.
Grab a non.
The meeting is adjourned.
On page 2.